Do you want more? More time, more balance, more love, more sex, more money, more real, and less bullshit? This is the Women Wanting More podcast with Dr. Karen Osborne. Real life, real stories, plus real tips to get you more of what you want.
So I heard something amazing in a podcast yesterday. Yes, I listen to podcasts. And if you're new to this podcast, by the way, and you're hearing all the beep, beep, beep and the park assist stuff in my car, it's because, yes, I do record most of these podcast episodes, at this point at least, in my car. It is the time that I can do things. I drop off my kids at school, and then we have a conversation as I'm driving back home and ready to dig into my work day. So let's talk about this podcast I heard. It was a Rachel Hollis podcast, which is called Rise. It's more of an entrepreneurial podcast, but amazing nonetheless. And she had on a guest who I don't remember her name, but you could Google her and find her out. But she did something which was called 100 Days of Fear. So what she did is she, at the time, I think this was like 4 years ago now, she was a 26-year-old woman who was just afraid a lot of the time and didn't have a lot of confidence. And so she realized there were so many things that she was afraid of in life that she wanted to face them. And the purpose of that was to really increase her confidence. And she just said, I'm going to actually, go through these and share these with the world. And so she put them up on her YouTube channel. And when she got into about the 40s or so of her 100 Days of Fear, it started to go viral and started to get a lot of attention and stuff, and just like amazing journey that she went through and all the things that she learned, right? So there's something that she mentioned. Go listen to the podcast episode, by the way. It's great. So the Rachel Hollis podcast called Rise, R-I-S-E. She has a couple different podcasts, one with her husband Dave as well. But yeah, this one was great on 100 Days of Fear. And so from that has actually branched out. She now does speaking. She realized that it's not even just like, you don't have to be facing all the big fears of like, she had a fear of spiders, so she held a tarantula and she skydived, and she was afraid to be alone, so she went to a new city by herself for an entire weekend. Like, there's big things like that, but then there's little ways to find courage in your day. Complimenting a stranger, I don't know, little things that we might feel are no big deal, but like they're a big deal, right? And so from this, expanded this whole brand of hers, 100 Days of Fear. She's got a book coming out, like amazing, right? But let me come back to this and why I wanted to speak into this today. One thing that she said when they had a lot of discussions about fears, right? And where they come from and what are the different types of fears and how we have different fears, right? For one person, greatest fear might be, speaking on stage. And for somebody else to like, oh, bring it. Like, how is that a fear? That's amazing. What an experience to get to do something like that. And one of the things that she said is that often people will say, when you're wanting to do something that's really scary, they go, oh, what's the worst thing that could happen? Okay, and so here's the challenge with that statement. The reason why, and this really resonated with me, the reason why our fears often hold us back is because we do go to the worst case scenario. We do go, oh my God, this could happen. Oh my God, that could happen. And the things that fear will tell us, the fear, which is also another way of saying ego, another way of saying the mind, right, that creates all these stories and scenarios, which, by the way, most of them never happen, never come true, but we create this elaborate drama in our head of here's all the worst things that could happen, right? And so, no, you don't want to go to what is the worst thing that could happen when you face your fear. And what she did is she kind of flipped the switch on it and she reframed it. So this was just brilliant. Where she said, instead of saying, well, what's the worst thing that could happen? When you are facing your fear and doing something that is scary, that you instead ask yourself the question, what is the best thing that could happen? What is the best thing that could happen if I face that fear? And maybe the answers you get back are like, oh my God, like it would feel amazing to go, I did this, right? I would feel confidence. I would know that I can do hard things. If I go back to the example, if I spoke on that stage and I shared my story, like there might be people that really need to hear what I'm sharing, and it's going to impact them in some powerful way. That, perhaps by sharing that story, man, like maybe this is a whole kind of new career path for me. I mean, I don't know. I'm just kind of like riffing on this, right? Like that you literally just say, instead of what's the worst thing that could happen? Because yeah, you've trained yourself, and so have all of us, by the way, from when we're kids on up, right? It's interesting, if you are a mother or a father, or you're an auntie, you got friends that have kids, you've been around kids, right? And you maybe remember you were a kid, right? That there's this time in life for a lot of us where we're kind of fearless in some respect, right? We're just like, okay, let's go, let's do it. We'll just like, I watch my 6-year-old Kai, and he will put on one of his princess dresses and spin around the house and wear it to school. And he doesn't give a fuck. Like, there's no kind of, oh, well, I shouldn't do that. Or what are people going to think of me? I'm a boy wearing a dress. Or, I shouldn't twirl around right now because no, he just goes for it. Right. Like, there's none of that. Now, I'm hoping, but this is the way that the most of us, it happens as human beings. Fortunately, he's got a mom who's a little bit more conscious and awake and starting to teach him some of these things. But, often we'll have experiences in life, and it could be some simple comment that somebody said without meaning to harm us, right? Or it could be something where there's been, some significant trauma, abuse, something like that. That kind of like stunted that. Like, it just stopped it in that place. And we went, oh, not doing that anymore. I'm going to shut down, right? I mean, I remember a boy in grade 4 I had a crush on, and either he said it to me or somebody said it to me of like, oh yeah, he thinks you're great, but only from, what did he say? The waist on up. And so what he meant, now I, growing up in the 70s, was just a little bit more of an athletic build, like still kind of smaller, like petite, but like I started figure skating, and I had, like strong legs and had a booty. And this was before it was cool to have a booty, by the way. It was the 70s. Everybody was like, I don't know if you remember the model Twiggy. God, that's like really dating me. She was more like started in the 60s, but just that really like thin, skinny, like, it's just, yeah. Anyways. So I remember that comment, and for like the longest time, and still I got to work through where I'm just like, ugh, I have these big, like, thick legs, strong legs. They've got me lots of different places, and like, built them up very strong, but still just like, oh, I'm the girl with the big legs. Like, pants don't fit me, or, embrace my booty now for sure. But like, we all have those experiences of things that have happened, things that have been said to us, things that happen to us that suddenly we go, no, not doing that. And it's like, it creates this little, like a divot in time, right? Like a little mark. Now, it doesn't mean that we can't move through that stuff, right? But often those little marks are the things that are starting to hold us back. That we go, oh, I can't do that because if I do, then this will happen, right? That worst case scenario. We go through all the worst things that could happen. So it is really cool as children. We often have, not all of us, but, often common thing. We're kind of fearless. I'm just going to do this thing. And then it changes. Why? Well, because we have these experiences. Or maybe we had, parents raising us for the most part that were doing their absolute best, and they just didn't know any better, right? The things they said, or how they raised us, or how they showed up for us or didn't show up for us. They were just doing their best. We're not going to go on the path of blaming mom and dad, but that was the best that they could do, right? And it did shape us and change us and create these divots, these wounds. And then, here we go. Here's the fears, right? Or we just adopted stuff. Like, I remember for the longest time, my mom would talk about this fear. She had this fear of being like us as kids having our head under the water, like swimming. Like, don't put your head in the water. Like, you went to a lake. Don't put your head in the water. I'm like, what is that? She'd swim with her like head above the water. And I couldn't understand. And I didn't know for the longest time why she was a little bit of a fearful person anyways, but she, had an experience. Actually, I'm thinking of two separate ones right now. I'm thinking of a fear that her mother passed on to her. So we'll kind of just put that aside. But she had an experience where she was like, oh, Karen, I used to love to swim. And I'm like, really? Because I always see that you were always so afraid of us being in water. Like, we never really didn't take swim lessons as a kid. And she's just, that's just, her fear of that kind of got passed on to us. And then lo and behold, she told me a couple years ago, before, because she has dementia now, pretty significant. So before that, I was able to kind of hear the story. And she goes, yeah, I had an experience. I was a teenager. I think she was like 15, 16, swimming across a lake. And suddenly she's just kind of, I don't know what happened, but her legs stopped working. Maybe it was cold or something. I don't really know, but she started to go under, and she started to feel like she was drowning. And then I think it either happened again, or she tried and she had again that panicky feeling, and she's like, I'm out, right? So then hence, she's now passing that fear of water and swimming onto us. And we were never swimmers as kids. Like, we get in the ocean, get in a lake and stuff, but I honestly did not know how to swim. Like, I could swim. I could doggy paddle and kind of do this quasi convoluted breaststroke kind of thing. I could tread water. I could save my life in water, but I couldn't swim laps. I didn't know how to do front crawl or anything like that, right? And so we have these little divots, these wounds that happen. And so, yeah, we go to those places, right? Worst case scenario. It's like they're kind of imprinted in us. Again, those little divots, those wounds, those scars, which can be healed, but it takes some work. It takes some work. It takes some work to kind of say, oh man, I'm going to that fear place again. Right, that's what this is, like to observe yourself in it, which is hard. It's hard to do when you're like in the storm, right? You're in the panic attack. You're in that feeling of anxiety. You're like frozen in the fear. It's hard to see out of that place. It does take some work. I mean, this is really what I love to do as a coach, is to help guide women through that process so you become aware of it and it allows you to make different decisions. But for today, because we're having this conversation here on the podcast and not as a client in deep work like I do face-to-face at live events and one-on-one coaching and all that beautiful, very, very amazing, lucky work that I get to do with women. Let's start with this, which is, as opposed to, again, what's the worst that could happen, to ask yourself, like, what's the best that could happen? And allow yourself to open up. Now, you might notice that you go there and suddenly ego/fear goes, no, and it wants to kind of shut down. You want to go back to fear, like, oh, that's silly. No, that won't happen. This is all the bad shit that's going to happen. So just allow, like, just feel it. The fear's going to come back in. No, it's like, like tapping on the shoulder. Like, no, remember over here? Remember all the danger? Stuff's going to happen. You're going to get rejected. You're going to get abandoned. People are going to laugh at you. You're going to look like an idiot. People are going to think less of you. Like, all that stuff that comes up. You're not enough, remember? You'll never do it. You're going to fail just like the last time. All that. All the lies. Right? Fear, false evidence appearing real. Probably seen all these things. False evidence appearing real. Notice it, and then create a little pause and go, okay, I see you, fear. I hear you. Thank you. And I love you. Thank you. By the way, fear can't exist in the presence of love. It's like it just dissolves in it. It just dissolves in it, right? Think of times when you maybe comforted your child who's afraid and you just like hug them and you just love them and you go, I'm here, honey, and I love you. Right? You acknowledge the fear that they're in or the state that they're in or the sadness that they're in, and then it's just love just dissolves it all, right? But you got to acknowledge it first. You can't just brush it under the rug. Otherwise, it'll keep on like, I'm over here. So acknowledge that fear of you going, oh my God, this could happen. All the worst case. Pause and ask yourself instead, what is the best thing that could happen? So here's what I want you to do as your more tip today. I want you to think of something that is scary for you right now, okay? It could be something simple like, I don't know, you're going up to one of the kids' moms at school. You're like, oh, she's like really cool. I would like to maybe like be friends with her, but see if she'd like to like go out for coffee sometime or go to a movie together or go for a play date with the kids. Like maybe it's just having that conversation, right? Maybe it is something you're wanting to kind of share your story in the online space somehow or with another friend, someone who's safe. Maybe it's you just want to like, I don't know, go to a dance class, go to a new place to work out. I remember when I started taking spin classes about a year ago, I was like, oh, here we go, new gym, like, I don't know. And, it takes some courage for that, right? There's a little bit of scariness of that, of do I fit in? And yeah, even for me, I've been working out for decades and decades, like there's still those little things, right? So pick one fear, big, little, doesn't really matter. And just instead of, again, the worst case scenario, because you've already gone to all those places, so we don't need to place any more energy into that. I want you to open up your journal and to ask yourself, what would be the best thing that could happen? What could be the best thing that could happen? And write and see what comes up, right? Now you can stop right there. You might go well, all these things and just give yourself a little bit of time to kind of marinate. Let all this stuff soak in, right? It can also be something you go, you know what? This, like the best things, like what could be the best thing that could happen is actually like, man, that list, that far out trumps all the things of what could the worst could happen. Like, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to do this. Because I could be missing out on all these best things that could be, right? Without attaching to them, by the way. Without saying, yeah, I'm going to like force it. I'm going to need that manic manifestor. I'm going to make this happen. No, just allow. Just be like, it could be this or it could be that. But instead of just saying it's going to be this, all the worst case things, look to the that, right? Look to the what is the best thing that could happen? It is amazing what happens when you open yourself up to the possibility of what is possible. Like you're just open to it. You don't have to believe in it. You don't have to go, oh yeah, that's how it's going to go down. No, none of that stuff. You're just open, right? It's like, think of it like trying a new food or, I like to, when I go out for dinner or drinks, to kind of be like, we live in BC and there's a lot of wineries here in BC, especially here on the island. We live in Vancouver Island. And I like to often try like a new wine. And so often I'll kind of be like, let me try this one. I'll get like you can get like a sample, right? Like, let me try this one and this one, then decide like, what's the worst that could happen? I just don't like the wine. Like, it's not a real biggie. What's the best that could happen? I'm like, oh, it could be like a new flavor, a new like, wow, that's a new wine. I like that. That's really interesting. Right? Just open myself up to and I used to, by the way, be like, no, I'm getting this wine. It's a Sauvignon Blanc. It's from Australia, New Zealand. That's safe. That's good. I'm good. Right? And it's a white wine. Well, now I've actually tried a red sometimes. I've tried a rosé, and it's like, just, again, that's just a simple example. But you open yourself up to a possibility, and I'm going to have you just also consider that when you start to take small little steps, like trying a new wine, it makes you realize, you're like, wow, that was actually really cool to try something new, do something different that's outside of my as per usual norm. And then maybe you go a little bit bigger, and you try something a little bit scarier, a little bit, right? And it just starts to expand. And then guess what? You expand. You grow. You are just so open to possibilities that life begins to unfold for you in the most beautiful ways. And not the box that you're currently living in. Not the story that you have, which is just like, well, this is just the way that I am. So you might think that this exercise here is like, nah, no big deal. Like, whatever. Maybe I'll do it, maybe I won't. But this could be big for you. So let's do this again. So again, with this more tip, identify what's the one fear that I just want to face right now. Okay? And then open up your journal and write down, what is the best thing that can happen if I do this thing and I face this? What is the best thing that could happen? It is an amazing thing that I, again, get to do this deep work that I do. Like the Women Wanting More Retreat Experience, which is a brand new style, if you will, of live event experience that I've created that's happening in like 2 months from when I'm recording this podcast right now. Here I live in Victoria, BC. And I wanted to really create something that took women on a journey of what I've been going through for the last year and a half, which is where I'm seeing a lot of women stuck, lost. I don't know who I am. I don't know my purpose. Like I'm doing all these things. Karen, I'm listening to your podcast. I'm reading your Facebook posts, following Instagram. I'm like reading these other books. I've gone to these seminars, but yet they're still kind of in that same place. Like it might kind of move the needle a little bit and then kind of flip right back. Why? Well, a lot of it is that subconscious programming, the shit that happened to us, right? Growing up. And unless we kind of unwind that, often is that cause, it doesn't matter how much mindset stuff we place on top of that foundation, we got to get to the root, right? And so in this 2-day live event retreat experience, we get to do that in a way that is loving, compassionate, understanding, accepting, non-judgmental, connective with other women that are just like you. That's the biggest lie the ego tells us. I'm all alone. I did it too, like for decades. Nobody liked me. Nobody understands me. This is just the way life is. I'm the oddball. I don't fit. I'm not like other women, right? This allows you to see this. This allows you to see the power of sisterhood. Listen, it's time for us as women to start coming together like we used to, okay? Like there used to be groups of women that lived near each other and helped each other with their kids and all that stuff, which is kind of not possible as much in today's modern world. But we can create these experiences that bring this back together, that create this bond for us to come together as women and to be there and support each other. So this is a very small group, 12 women only. There's already 4 seats that have been taken. Okay, listen, as I record this podcast, it is a Wednesday. In the last 3 days, 2 spots have been taken. Okay, so this is already like a third full. Like, boom, like that. So if you've been hearing me talk about this live event retreat experience for a while now, right? Or you're kind of just a little inkling. Like, this could be your fear, by the way. I don't know. This could be your fear. Like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. What's the worst that can happen? What's the best that could happen? You actually get accepted, because it is by application only. And you actually get here. And you actually have the transformations that you are just, dying to have. Your heart is just calling to you. Like, come on, take the leap, take that step. You can do this. All the other stuff, ego's like, no, can't do this. How are we gonna do this? Like all that stuff, right? All the reasons and the things that are holding you back, which we all know, it's always just us. Always comes back to that. It's the craziest thing. My 50 years here on the planet, like, it's just always back to like, it's me. Okay, got it again, right? But for you to come in a place where you are in a crisis, you are in a crossroads, and you can't. It's like, I cannot stay where I'm at right now. Like, something needs to change. And I take you through this beautiful experience where at the end of the 2 days that you will feel rejuvenated and renewed and remembering who you really are, owning your worthiness, starting to really clear some of these subconscious patterns and programs, and come out the other end a brand new you with clarity, with a plan, with tools on how to continue this work with this group of women. So here's what I want you to do to apply for the Women Wanting More Retreat experience. Again, just 8 spots that are currently left. 2 ways, okay? You can either text me, 250-589-4811, and say, Karen, I would like to apply for that retreat, okay? And I will get in touch with you right away. Texting is actually the best way to get a hold of me, because I don't check email quite as often. Or you can email me, drkarenosburn@gmail.com. So drkarenosburn@gmail.com. Okay, or text 250-589-4811. Either way, just say, Karen, I would like to apply for the retreat. Okay, so text me. Yes, you can text me. Please don't call me. I will not pick up the phone. Just straight up. I don't answer the phone unless it's someone who I know. But text, please do. 250-589-4811. Karen, I'd like to apply for the retreat, and I will get in touch with you right away, and we will begin the process. You will never know unless you take that first step. And what is the best thing that could happen? What is the best thing that could happen? So I will talk to you in the next episode, sister. A life of more really is one step away from asking yourself, what is the best thing that could happen? Every single day. I love and appreciate you.
To get the show notes of each Women Wanting More episode, including the How to Get More tip, subscribe to the newsletter at drkarenosburn.com/newsletter.